Hey friends, today we are working on a Virago 920. That one says 920 on the block. This one actually says 981. I'm not quite sure. But either way, I think they're all pretty much the same. We are sinking some carbs today. First time I'm ever doing it, so I had what I think was good success, but I couldn't find a whole lot of information or videos online, so I figured I'd make one myself, hopefully help somebody out. If you have any suggestions or advice, please let me know. Take all this with a grain of salt, because again, it's the first one I've ever done. I tried a little bit on the 4-cylinder yesterday. What you need is vacuum gauges, flat screwdriver, probably a Phillips screwdriver. Basic tool set is handy. For your air fuel screw or whatever, it's handy if you've got a little flat on a socket that you can just use like a screwdriver. And maybe a pair of pliers, needle nose pliers or the like, just to take off your hoses and such. Got to be careful with all that. I would recommend checking all your hoses while you're in there. Make sure they're not all brittle and cracked. If they are, change them, of course. And maybe put a fuel filter in as well. If you don't have an inline fuel filter in there already, I would recommend putting one in. I don't have one at the moment, unfortunately. This bike was just restored, so I hopefully don't need to worry about that. Not by myself, just to be clear. I just bought it like this. But anyway, vacuum gauges. You can get a nice set of four vacuum gauge kit on Amazon for like $60 or something. And pretty simple to use. These are to steady your gauge. If you have it too loose, it's going to bounce all over the place. You have it too tight, then the vacuum can't flow through. So you want to find a medium. Balance them to where they're still moving freely with blips of the throttle, or adjust them to where they're still moving freely, but they're not bouncing all over the place. You guys can figure that out. For this side hose, pop this one off. They're usually on the boots in between the head and the carb. Being that this is a V-twin, of course, you got two different heads, which is kind of stupid with the carbs on these things, but that's how they are. And on these things, you've got caps on each one that you popped your vacuum gauges onto. And some, I believe, even have plugs that you screw out. It might even look like this, just somewhere randomly on the side of the carb. You got to pull that off, and then they have adapters in those kits. Typically, you can screw on that have a barb on them to slide a hose onto. And they come with these hoses as well. They seem to be pretty good hoses. So anyway, first thing you got to do, of course, like I said, take your tank off initially so you can see all this. Locate your screws. You've got your thumb screw here for your main idle, and on the other side, you've got well, here, I'll just go around. Okay, and then you've got this guy here. That is an 8mm, and you just break that loose, and it is a Phillips head underneath, I believe. And your air fuel screws, if your bike is running like garbage, this one is in here. There's a flat in there in that cylinder in there. You can't really tell, but in there is where you gotta get. That's what that little socket is for. That's for your air. I think it's called the air fuel screw. Mine was running like garbage, backfire, and barely running on one cylinder. And that ended up being the case for me. I pinpointed which one by the popping and banging on my pipes. You might not be able to do that. If you can't pinpoint which cylinder it is, maybe you can use a heat gun as well. For that, I can't guarantee it, but if you can find the one that's burning hotter than the other, typically it's the one that's cooler that's not running like it should be, because it's not firing like it should be. But if you can't pinpoint it, I would suggest trying each one individually until you figure out which cylinder it is. Maybe they have a basic, there's the other one there. Maybe they have a basic amount of what they're supposed to be set at from the factory. They say not to bottom them out, because you can not to bottom them out hard, tighten them too much, because you can damage them. But that ended up being the culprit on mine, the rear cylinder on the other side. I ended up having to back it out. I turned it in all the way, and I backed it out 5 turns to where it was running smoothly, because my front was already running fine. And then, now it seems good. So, it seemed to be a sweet spot. It might even be better if I turned it out a little further, but I just kind of left it there. It seemed far out already anyway. So, yeah, connect your vacuum gauges, both sides. You want to make sure that these numbers are reading very close to the same. First, you want to do your idle. And again, you want to make sure the bike is running half decent to begin with, somewhat anyway, not backfiring and popping and banging, running rich or lean or whatever. And then you want to try to adjust it as much as you can. Try to set your idle as much as you can as you're going along. I would use the other side to adjust the actual balancing, and this side and that side to adjust your oh, my phone's almost dead. And I would use that side to adjust my actual idle. This side for your balancing, that side for your idle. And yeah, you just turn that in or out. Watch your gauges. You want to get them close. If one's at 20 and one's at 30, then, so let's say this one's at 20, it's low. You balance that and it goes down. Well, of course, you're going the wrong way. You want to go the other way. Very careful. Maybe blip the throttle in between each reel change in your screw or reel turn or whatever. and you want them to read closely. And once you've got that tuned, then of course that screw in behind there. Now that I don't have my flashlight, let's see if we'll be able to see it, make it out. It's in there. Can you see it? It's kind of the blurry spot in there, but it's in between there. You got to take this boot off to get at it. And yeah, I mean, other than that, there's not much to it. That's the one you set. You don't even have to pull your carbs off. If you haven't cleaned them yet, they might be dirty. Well, then you clean them first, obviously. But if you've got clean carbs and you know it, then you got to take this side boot off to get at the center balance. And you can barely reach it with a flat screwdriver or Phillips or whatever. If you do that, you got to be careful with that, because when you push on it, it kind of revs it up or whatever. Luckily, I didn't have to make many adjustments on that, so it was pretty close. They should be very close to each other. So you can see that one's going to go to about 22, I would guess. You can see this one's bouncing all over the place. This is what I'm talking about. 22 or so, 22 or so. Same with your throttle. So you can tell my carbs are actually empty anyway, so I'm not getting right readings right now because I don't have my fuel tank on. But you can tell they're pretty close to each other. I might have to do a little bit of tuning there yet. But yeah, that's it. There's not much to it. Just make sure you know where your vacuum lines are. Don't lose them. Don't lose anything, obviously. Don't damage anything. Check all the lines while you got them off. And make sure you don't have your tank on prime when you take it off, because it's going to pour all the fuel out if you do. And yeah, that's basically it. I don't think there's anything else to it, really. And just, like I said, adjust them till they're balanced. And one needle will go up, one will go down. Find the sweet spot, and there you have it. But hope this video helps somebody. And as always, may God bless you.